Coronavirus has killed over 150,000 people, according to CBS, as of this week. That number is extremely high considering the first case was less than 6 months ago, but what about a threat that spans across centuries? We can expect a much higher death toll, and that's what we're facing now in the form of climate change. I first learned about climate change when I was in elementary school, like most people, but I've been doing some extensive research over the past few weeks. The bad thing about climate change is obviously it's affecting the Earth in a negative way, and it's affecting everyone. But the good thing is that there's something that we can do about it. I care about this topic not only to ensure a safer planet for myself, but also for my kids and my grandkids. The reality is that we're just now starting to see some of the effects of climate change, but these effects will be much more severe in the future. This is why everyone should be concerned with climate change, not just to protect themselves, but to protect future generations. So, firstly, I will tell you what climate change is and some of the consequences I've been talking about, and then I'll tell you what we can do about it. So what is climate change? Climate change is the global rise in temperature of the Earth. The primary cause of climate change is something called the greenhouse effect, which is where greenhouse gases like methane and carbon dioxide are being released into the atmosphere and trapped by the atmosphere. These gases by nature are heat trapping, so when they are trapped they release heat and increase the surface temperature of the Earth. We can see that this greenhouse effect is happening through statistics. Firstly, the statistic of the global temperature actually rising. As you can see by this chart, since 1880, the global temperature has risen by about 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, according to Miodrag Mezirovic, who is a climate researcher, he estimates that a primary cause of this is due to the fact that humans emit carbon dioxide up to 10,000 times faster than natural processes. These are done through things like burning fossil fuels, like driving. This 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit increase comes with some major consequences as well. NASA estimates that the sea level will rise by about 1 to 4 feet by 2100 and will keep growing afterwards. We can also expect hurricanes and droughts to be more frequent and more fierce with this warmer weather. This will cause our world's food supply to be diminished through droughts, which will henceforth cause farmers to go out of business. And speaking of business, climate change comes with some economic effects as well. Economist Marcus Painter did a study on the relationship between municipal bonds and climate risk, and he found that in counties with higher climate risk due to things like rising sea levels, they had to pay millions more to receive these municipal bonds from the government. So now that we know all the bad things and we know what climate change is, the good thing is that we know what we can do about it. Climate change is a large problem, obviously. It's affecting the whole planet, which means it's going to take everyone to solve it. Climate researcher Edward Maybeck points out that many actions recommended to prevent climate change are seen as requiring costs up front, while delivering benefits only in the future, possibly the distant future. Like I said, the full effects of climate change won't be seen until possibly farther in the future, so that's why we need to act now. How we can act now and reduce this climate change is through carbon mitigation, which is reducing the amount of carbon dioxide that's in our atmosphere. This can be broken up into 2 parts. 1, reducing the amount of carbon dioxide that we actually emit, or 2, according to Andreas Krauss, it is implementing a large-scale carbon dioxide removal system. He suggests things like reforestation or avoiding deforestation. But it's pretty easy for everyone to just not go cut down trees, or some people might not have the access to plant trees around them. So, the most logical way for us to reduce carbon emissions is through carpooling. Me personally, at the University of Arkansas, I find myself only driving to the hockey rink or a series of different stores running errands. But every time I do this, I'm carpooling, whether it's with a teammate or a roommate or just a friend. So no matter how often you have to leave your room, it's always important to carpool and bring along a roommate or a friend. As far as campus goes, I walk to campus, firstly because I am close enough and also because it reduces this carbon emissions. But if you're not close enough to walk to campus, consider driving to campus with a roommate. Or if your roommate's schedules don't coincide with yours, I recommend staying on campus throughout the day and using study spots or different restaurants like in the Union. Or if you simply don't like your roommate, switch roommates, which is what I'm doing. The effects of this carpooling can be very significant. There's a study done by faculty at McGill University about incentivizing Waze users to carpool. Waze, if you don't know, is a navigation app like Google Maps. And they estimated that if they could convince just 1% of their 110 million users to carpool, they could save about 3.4 tons of carbon from being emitted into the atmosphere. Similarly, if we could get our campus to carpool, we could do our part in reducing 150 pounds from being emitted into the atmosphere every day. This number may seem small, but like I said, this is a large problem which is going to require a large solution. So maybe if we could get campuses across the country to contribute and carpool, we could save tons of carbon dioxide as well from being released into the atmosphere. There's also another study done in Beijing by climate researchers Ruanheng Huang and Feng Zhu, studying how much carbon is released from high school students just driving to school during the school year. They found that these high school students emit about 770,000 tons of carbon dioxide during one school year. Obviously, with a simple 2-to-1 ratio, if we could convince everyone to carpool, that would save hundreds of thousands of tons from being emitted every year. So similarly, if we carpooled, we could reduce carbon emissions by a lot as well, even off campus as well, not just campus. This is why carpooling can have such a significant effect. Just doing it every day might save a little every day, but when it's added up, it can make a giant contribution. So, like I said, climate change is a massive task, but with enough people contributing, we can make a significant effect. So now that I've clarified what climate change is and some of the effects about it, you can understand more clearly the threat that is faced today. These effects will not be seen today or even in your lifetimes, but they will be severe in the future. This is why we need to act now. Climate change is a large-scale problem which will require a large-scale solution, which I've put forth as carpooling. Doing it every day can lead up to a large-scale carbon emissions savings from entering the atmosphere. Together, through carpooling, we can stop this climate change and make the world a better place, not just today, but for the future and our future generations.